Shaloha, and welcome to our study of the Land of Gold and the Flood, Part 4. If you have not watched or listened to the first 3 videos in this study right here on our channel, please do so now. Even modern scientists finally agree that there is great evidence for a worldwide flood that occurred thousands of years ago, as there have been marine fossils found on top of the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, and that several lakes worldwide contain half saltwater and half fresh, such as in Peru, Lake Titicaca. In our first video of this Land of Gold series, we map out the rivers of Eden as they were before the flood. There was no oceans before the flood. These massive rivers align with the deep underwater ocean trenches that we find worldwide, the River of Eden system. There is now even an ark in the United States that was constructed in Kentucky where you can go and have the ark experience. So let's begin by reading the account in Genesis chapter 6, where Noah is given instructions about building this ark. Genesis 6, verse 13. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Room shalt thou make in the ark, and shall pitch it within and without with pitch. Let's examine and see what gopher wood actually is. Here it is according to Strong's Concordance. And it looks like they're not exactly sure what it is either, although it's the only time this particular word is used in the entire Bible. It's a little more specific here in the Englishman's Concordance, but it basically says meaning is unknown. And we find a similar definition here in Strong's Concordance. So if it's from an unused root or unused shoresh in Hebrew, that means it's not really a Hebrew word, but there is a Hebrew word contained within it. Let's take a look and see what the ships were made of that traveled from Ezion-Geber for a year and a half to the islands of the east. 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 26. And King Solomon made a navy of ships in Ezion-Geber, which is beside Elat, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. And they came to Ophir, and fetched from thence gold, 420 talents, and brought it to King Solomon. As you might recall from our past videos in this series, Hiram from Tyre and his entire crew had vast knowledge of the best wood on earth to build watertight, really strong ships that would be able to last from Ezion-Geber all the way to Ophir and back, which was round trip a 3-year journey. And by simply removing the G from the beginning of the word gopher, which is not a Hebrew word, we come to a Hebrew word, Ophir, also called in other ancient manuscripts, Ophir. Is it possible that Ophir would be known for having a certain type of tree that is used for excellent quality shipbuilding? Yes, and it happens to be the national tree of what we call the Philippines today, which was known in the past, as you've seen in our other videos, as the land of Ophir. And here it is. It's the Nara tree. You can even look this up. It's the national tree used especially for making watertight seafaring ships, still in the Philippines today. And knowing that Adam and his descendants lived in a mountainous area in the land of creation, it would make sense that Noah would still live there in the land of Eldah. We also know it as Havilah from Genesis chapter 2, the land of creation. So it would just make sense that there would be trees there that the Most High would instruct Noah to use for building, not gopher wood, Ophir wood. Genesis 6, verse 15. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make in the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. Note that in this list of materials there are only two: Ophir wood and pitch. Remember, Noah and his sons took over 100 years to construct this gigantic ship, and there was no metals in the list of materials. Now, there's been some speculation about a certain researcher whose work we respect, but the ark that this researcher found in Turkey had quite a bit of metal in it. Also, the measurements of this particular finding in Turkey were too short. They don't correspond with the measurements here in Genesis chapter 6. And it was found on a mountain named Ararat, but the name of this mountain was not always Ararat. It is a recent name from just like the past 500 years. And this is part of the reason why I decided to do this video, to prove that it would be impossible, according to scripture, for Noah's Ark to still be intact and to have landed in Turkey. And I'd like to credit our friends at The God Culture for bringing this truth forth. And I've included one of the slides that they have in their video about the flood and the location of the Ark of Noah. And here is their list. Please press pause to read through all the problems with this ark that was found in Turkey. Also, think about Noah and his sons and all the time and effort that they spent building this ark. Why would they just leave it sitting like a museum for someone to find when they could easily take it apart and use the wood for building homes, for cooking, for building smaller ships to navigate? Let's continue reading in Genesis 7, verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Where was the only water on earth located at this point in time? Before the flood? In the rivers of Eden. So that's where the fountains of the great deep would be broken up, and there would be water volcanoes exploding all through the rivers of Eden, which is why when we look at the deep underwater ocean trenches today, they don't seem smooth like a river would be. They were broken up. And this map is another excellent one from our friends at The God Culture. You can check out their whole flood series that they've done on their channel, and it's an excellent one. Genesis 7, verse 17. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. Now let's take a comparison of these two mountains. The tallest mountain on earth, which is Mount Everest, versus Mount Ararat in Turkey. So first of all, it doesn't seem to me that the researcher who did this research of an ark being discovered in Turkey realized that it originated in the land of Ophir and built with Ophir wood in the far east, in the islands of the east, where Noah lived, where Adam and his descendants lived, in the land of creation. So let's keep that in mind as we're comparing the two heights here. According to Wikipedia, Mount Everest is 29,031 feet tall, as opposed to Mount Ararat in Turkey, 16,854 feet tall. Now, if the ark originated in the islands of the east and it traveled west, which mountain would it be more likely to land on when the waters receded? Now, the locals in Nepal call this mountain Sagarmatha, which is Sanskrit for head of the ocean or forehead of the sea and sky. They changed the name. A man named Hence Wow chose to name the mountain after George Everest, first using the spelling Mount Everest and then Mount Everest. However, the modern pronunciation, Everest, was originally pronounced Everest, which is the English form of Eve's name, which in Hebrew is Hava. So Eve's generations rested on this mountain. The Book of Jubilees, also found in its entirety in the Dead Sea Scrolls, calls this mountain Lubar in Jubilees chapter 5, verse 28. We continue reading in Jubilees, and you could take a look at this excellent chart, again made by our friends in the God Culture. Jubilees chapter 5, verse 29. And on the new moon in the 4th month, the fountains of the great deep were closed, and the floodgates of heaven were restrained. And on the new moon of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the water began to descend into the deep below. So it's kind of like the Most High pulled the plug in the bathtub and the water drained out. So looking at the measurements between the two mountains again, it appears that Mount Ararat in Turkey is about 12,000 feet too short. 32 of the highest mountains on earth are found in the Himalayas, and in Sanskrit, Hima means snow and Alaya means abode. However, in Tagalog, Himala means miracle, and Yah is a reference to the Most High. Genesis chapter 8, verse 14. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. As we see here, after the flood, the population distribution was and still is concentrated in the lands nearest to the place where the ark would have landed, in the middle of the continent we call Asia, not around the land we call Turkey. We can find easily in Genesis chapter 11 what direction the offspring of Noah traveled when they left the Himalayan mountain range, which they also refer to as the mountains of Ararat. Genesis 11, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Now this occurred just 4 generations after Noah, when Nimrod, the offspring of Ham, rose up to unite the world into a one-world government, the first prototype for an Antichrist figure. You could see on this map how if the ark was built in Ophir, near the ends of the earth in what we call the Philippines today, and the ark traveled and rested at Mount Everest, it would be a perfect location for those who inhabited the earth to travel from the east westward towards the land of Shinar, instead of, if they had originated in Mount Ararat, Turkey, they would have had to travel from the west, eastward, to the land of Shinar. As we come to the end of our study, it seems to be a trend among so-called Bible scholars to limit all biblical history to the Middle East and surrounding countries, when the events documented are actually spread to the ends of the earth. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 21 and 22 says, Prove all things, hold fast to that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil. And as always, please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining us for this study, and we'll see you next time. Shalom.